Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my 2021 reading bullet journal setup. So just switching over from last year's to a new Archer and Olive bullet journal, but this one has a cute little snake on it because I've been a little obsessed with snakes. And yeah, this setup, many mistakes were made, so expect that to happen soon. But the first one was me writing my name with a new brush pen and not liking how I wrote it, so then trying to correct it by going over it in my silver jelly roll pen, which looks weird with the ring light on. But yeah, I will also leave all of my materials linked down below just in case you guys do want to check it out for yourself or you're curious, so check down there if you see anything you are interested in that I forget to mention. But we're just starting off with my cover page. And I do like to keep my setup pages, so the yearly pages, very simple. I just feel like when I'm making my monthly spreads and they're very fun to look at, and then I have to flip back to the front, I want it to still kind of go together, which means that making the beginning monochrome is normally my best bet. But I just went with a very simple font. I was actually really inspired by how Amanda Rachley did her setup this year, even the way that she drop shadowed the kind of titles that she made. So if that looks familiar to you, that's why. But I just did that with some little star doodles. I just think it looks very cute and was simple. And just moving into my first official spreads, this is the dot grid spacing spread, another one that's very inspired by Amanda Rachley. I ended up deciding though not to make as many spaces as I originally thought I was going to, like spacing spaces, just because my reading bullet journal tends to be on the more simple side. The things that I really need to know are like the halves of the pages, the thirds, and then where I should really be drawing in my calendar squares for the beginning of each month. So yeah. And once again, just going for a very simple title. And I actually love this title probably more than all of my others, even though it is simple. I don't know why. I think it just had a nice little flair to it. And we'll be going back to the page next to it in a moment, but I did just want to move on to my anticipated releases. So I planned to make 12 squares for all of the months and be able to write in all of the books I'm excited that are getting released in that month, just as a good reference page and for me to even write down as I find out. But I made a lot of mistakes with this one as well, so that was a lot of speeding through it. Sorry about that, but I don't know what was happening. I just couldn't figure out how I wanted the boxes. And yeah, I just wrote anticipated releases and was done with it. And then the next spreads, the left page I'm gonna be leaving blank again for now, but then the right one is my books that I want to read this year spread. I ended up deciding on 9, just so that I don't feel overwhelmed and that I don't feel bad if I don't finish them. I feel like 9 is a more reasonable goal, but I blacked out the back using a Posca paint marker and then I made the title, but I realized that I would rather use a jelly roll to make the title. That's why I switched over. And it just says 9 books to read in 2021. Well, not yet. I think that I end up fixing that later. Yeah. And then the next day comes along. This spread, I'm telling you, it was kind of a wreck. I took a few days making it, and a lot of mistakes were made when it was supposed to be very simple, but things happen. I was using washi tape to make my shelves very crisp in this part. I don't know if I was entirely successful with that goal, but I did attempt it. And this is actually going to be all the books that I read in the year. So it's the bookshelves with all the books on them, so I can write the titles in as I finish them. I feel like this is a staple in bullet journals that are for reading. And I ended up sketching out right now all of the books. I made space for 100 of them. I think that that's always going to be kind of like my soft goal for the year, but I had to do some math right there because I didn't know what number I was on. Unfortunately though, I didn't leave any space for if I end up surpassing that goal. I don't know if I would, but if I do, I suppose I can just make another shelf in a different part of my spread. But I ended up outlining the books with my Posca paint marker, and I think that if I'd had a smaller size of the Posca marker, it would have turned out better. The reason I did it with that is because last year I had some issues with like the Tombow pen that I was using to fill in the books, having some bleeding around the book's edges. So I wanted to just do it with the Posca marker to avoid that issue. And I don't know, I just feel like it looks a little too bold now, but there's nothing to really do about it at this point. And it's still good enough. But at the bottom I just wrote down my key. I do fill in the books by star rating. I just feel like it's the easiest way. I like it like that. And yeah, now my next spread. So this one is my Goodreads goal. So, well, not really my Goodreads goal, just 100 books kind of checklist so I can go filling in the boxes as the books are read. Last year I did a cute little pattern that said 2020 that ended up being so difficult for me to keep track of, and I didn't love it, so I just went for 100 squares. And here you see that I actually kind of was running out of room for my squares, and I ended up having to write the 100th book in a star next to the title, but I love how that turned out. I mean, it wasn't on purpose, but I just love it. And again, we're going to be going back to the page that I left blank. Ooh, and here, another mistake was made. I wrote best right there because this spread is going to be my best books of 2021. So how I print out the picture each month in my normal monthly spreads, I wanted a place in the start of my book, of my bullet journal, to be able to kind of reference and see them all together. And I had made a mistake and wrote best on the right hand side when obviously it's supposed to be on the left hand side of that first page. So we ended up having to do some finagling with some black bullet journal paper that I got from my black Archer and Olive dotted grid notebook. But I also did a Dutch door. If you can see, I just wanted all 12 months to be able to be seen using these two titles. So I cut that middle page in half, and it was the perfect amount of squares, obviously, for the 12 months of the year. And I just am writing right now. Well, I thought I wanted to outline the titles, but I did it with a gel pen on paint marker. So if you didn't know, that means that it kind of rubbed when my hand went over it, and I had to fix it again. Which took more paint markering. And then I wrote in obviously the months and put a little square for the book that was my favorite for that month. So I do really love actually how this one turns out. I think that in a moment I'm going to put up a finger because there's still some final edits to be done. But yeah. After the best books of 2021 spread, I kind of went back and finally started working on the ones that I'd skipped that I wasn't sure of. This one is another one that's kind of inspired by Amanda Rach Lee. I just made a check it out page. I feel like I hear so many books during the year, and I wanted a place to kind of put them all and know that I have them all written down somewhere, because I tend to just add them to my Amazon wish list, and that doesn't normally help me. Yeah. And then here I'm writing my actual anticipated releases. So the official ones that I wanted in my video for the year. I ended up having to do the background in blue, and I'm actually using the Archer and Olive acrylograph pen for it, which I did really like, but the reason I did that was because my black Posca marker was running out of ink. And here I'm actually using the acrylograph again to write most anticipated. And I was having a little bit of issues with the 3mm one. I feel like their other one, the smaller sized, works perfectly for me. The 3mm gives me so many issues, and I had to wait for it to dry, and this is me recoloring it in to make it more crisp. And I just left spaces again to print out the books. And then for the first page that I left blank, I decided to make it my reading resolutions page. I don't know. I wasn't sure if I wanted this one in my journal this year just because I'm not the best at sticking with resolutions, but I did decide to make my resolutions more simplistic, not so much pressure. But yeah, just a simple page. I kind of made it like spacey with like the moons and their different cycles. But that was actually it for my setup, and we're finally getting into my January setup, which I am in love with. It's a midnight garden kind of theme. So it's just black roses, and I used my Posca marker even though it was running out of ink this entire time, and the green acrylograph, which is such a beautiful color, but it was the thin tip, so it was kind of a pain. But I also used, as like a title header, like little daggers. I don't know, I kind of want it to be like a dangerous midnight garden situation. Assassins in midnight gardens, I don't know. But I just think it looks so cool as more of it gets filled out, obviously. The first page is just kind of like, meh. And now I'm outlining the roses, obviously, in the jelly roll. But I actually am still just sticking to having my cover page be the day's read spread, so whether I read that day. And once again, I feel like I always make this mistake. I did pages read. I fix it later, don't worry. But I do use these stamps throughout it, and I'm so excited. I just got the stamps, and I feel like they were a fun move. They were a fun move. And here I had to bring back out my blackout journal from Archer & Olive, just because, again, my Posca marker is running out of ink, so I didn't feel like going out to buy one quite yet. So I was just kind of gonna use the black you'll see, to make the roses for this header. And this one is actually just my books read spread, so the books that I read for the month. I actually used to make this spread like a graph, if you guys remember, but I've been really preferring this method where it's more open, just because lately I've been enjoying writing notes when I finish a book. I just feel like it helps me sum up my thoughts a little bit better, find a rating for it, and it's really helpful for like wrap-up videos for the end of the month. So yeah, it's also a lot easier to make, and that never hurts. And I just wrote books read in kind of a script font similar to the one that I used for January, and just 2 little bullet points for the first 2 books that I'll read for the month. And now, coming on the last spread for January. I know, so simple, but I did another black rose using my Posca marker and the like green leaves around it. And this is just going to be the page where I write down my TBR books and my hauled books. And then the right side is kind of going to be a brain dump area. So I taped it off with washi tape just because I knew I was going to be going in with the acrylographs and things like that. Originally, I just was going to leave it like how you're seeing it right now. But you'll see that I end up filling it in, and I love how it looks after it's filled in. So let's just watch that. And helpful tip, I know in the beginning I said that I had to go over that title because when I did it in gel pen, on the paint marker, obviously it blurs, but if you use like the Micron pens or like the Tombow Fudenosuke pens, they actually won't because it's, I think, archival ink. Yeah. Oh, this is the most satisfying part. Just pulling off the washi tape. just love the way that the border ends up looking. I wasn't gonna even fill it in all the way, and I'm just so glad I did. It looks so freaking cool, in my opinion. But yeah. And now, obviously, to write in the TBR and hauled titles for the month. It was also at that point that I remembered I was supposed to be doing daggers in my titles, so here are my kind of crappy daggers. And now finally to attack the cover page. And you'll notice also on the left side, my candle has completely gone out. That is how long this whole thing took me. Yeah. But we're just starting. I decided to still put in a little spot for my monthly favorite book, and to have it right next to the title. I just think it'll look really cool. And I decided to go full on Midnight Garden. I just wanted it to be like a beautiful rose bush, a black rose bush that looked overgrown and just, I don't know, magical, I guess. I love how this ended up looking. It was a lot of work, honestly. The leaves were anyways, but definitely worth it. And I did a silver moon up in that top left corner. I love this part. You can just slowly see my journal moving as I continue drawing. But I ended up going over the silver moon with like my Liquitex paint marker in white to kind of give it more dimension. And I think in person it looks better, but obviously in the video it just doesn't turn out. And this is where I finally fix that page is red and just cross it out. And then I cross it out again. This is obviously a different day, once again, and I just put in days for days red. And I decide on the colors for my read and unread books, or read and unread days. And I just did a little bit of a drop shadow along the border for the favorite book. You'll see I also left a spot for pages read, just because I'm curious how many pages I read in a month. And now just for the flip through. Yeah, many mistakes were obviously made, but overall I think that this turned out really, really good. I just like how simple it is, but how many things there are for tracking. Obviously I already filled in some anticipated releases. Let me know some of your anticipated releases that I can put in for my months. Obviously, some more tweaking was done. I'd already added some of the pictures for my most anticipated. I colored in some of the objects for my 2021 reads. But yeah, for the most part, it all stayed the same. And I'm so happy, actually, with how this one turned out. And I hope you guys are too. But yeah, I just feel like it'll look really cool when it's all filled out. And I added this, the All the Books Read in 2021, where I can print out all of the books as I finish them. Again, I just feel like this one's going to be very aesthetic to look back on, just to be able to visually see everything. I am just really happy with how this turned out once again, and I am so excited to see what you guys think of it. I feel like even though it's very simple, I'm starting to kind of understand what kind of art techniques I want to use in journals and repetition and things like that. It has everything I want it to track to, which is amazing. I just feel like I'm finding my groove, and I hope you guys love it as much as I did. And that's actually it for this video. So for an emoji, let's leave a snake in honor of my new journal. And I'll see you in my next one. Goodbye!